Presentation. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to the special session of UAVs in architecture and planning. We have amongst us two prominent speakers who have extensive portfolio in architectural conservation using drone applications. The very first speaker here today we have is Dr. Shikha Jain. Graduated from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi in 1991, Dr. Shikha is also a visiting faculty for urban conservation in the Urban Planning Department of SPA, New Delhi. She has an extensive portfolio on cultural heritage of India that covers conservation, world heritage, and museum planning of 50 plus projects, largely realized through her organization Drona, of which she is the director. She is an international expert on world heritage and has advised government organizations in Singapore, Malaysia, UAE, and UNESCO offices at Indonesia and Myanmar. She has worked as a consultant to UNESCO, New Delhi, and represented Ministry of Culture, India as a heritage expert. She is the Vice President of EcoFort, the ICOMOS International Scientific Committee on Fortifications and Military Heritage. She received HUDCO awards for 2 urban conservation projects from Jaipur in 2013 that have been recognized under Urban Green Growth Best Practices. Dr. Shikha Jain is currently steering the Ajmer Hriday project for the Ministry of Urban Development with Drona. Today, she is going to deliver her talk titled Geospatial Mapping, Aerial and Terrestrial LIDAR Surveys in Documentation and Conservation of Cultural Heritage. Up to you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present. I will start with the presentation itself. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as you've already mentioned, my presentation focuses on aerial LIDAR surveys and geospatial tools in conservation of built heritage, and I've also added archaeological sites and city heritage mapping, because I'm going to show you specific examples on how we use drone surveys combined with other digital tools to finally look into conservation and management of built heritage. And this is, the UAV data is used on cultural heritage sites. I'm going to show you 3 kinds of examples. The first one would be on documentation, conservation, and interpretation of individual monuments. That is how we started using these tools. And then I have another example, which is on mapping and management of archaeological sites, because it's a major challenge on archaeological sites where a lot of your remains are actually buried underground or under vegetation growth. So drone surveys are very useful in that. And lastly, I will show you how we are preparing the heritage management plan for the World Heritage City of Jaipur, and how such surveys are integrated with geospatial mapping, and to finally provide us the canvas on which we prepare the plan, the main map. So I will start with, one of our case studies, City Palace Museum, Udaipur, in which we've been involved for last 18 years. And in fact, the first exercise we did for that in 2005 was preparing a conservation management plan, which was completed in 2009, because this is like a huge area. You can see the location. It is a very unique location for this Palace Museum. And of course, the challenge at that time was, how do we arrive at the detailed drawings, especially considering the height and also the access from the lake on one side. And this is where I, in fact, first we associated with IIT Roorkee and Dr. Kamal Jain, and that was the first exercise on photogrammetry in 2006-07. where we documented the complete palace using photogrammetry, and of course we could generate detailed drawings using those. And I recall at that time Dr. Kamal Jain was actually, he had station points on the lakeside in the moving boat, which was moving very slowly, so that we could actually map the entire lakeside facade for this. And of course, with technology advancement and more tools coming in, now we have, the detailed LIDAR survey for the City Palace Museum, Udaipur, and that was done by the government of Rajasthan in around 2014, 2015. And what is useful here is that being a museum, and most of the cultural heritage sites are actually something that you want visitors to know about, and the history to be known using these sort of virtual walkthroughs. So that's how using, these like rendering it with Autodesk and actually giving it a realistic flavor, one could actually develop virtual tours. And this is what City Palace is currently showing in its virtual tours. So it's a very useful tool that has been used for mapping as well as final interpretation of cultural heritage sites. And in a similar manner, we did another project which was also funded by the Getty Foundation, like the Udaipur one. And in this is a modern heritage structure it was funded under the Keeping It Modern grant of the City Palace, Keeping It Modern grant of the Getty Foundation. And this was from 2015 to 2017. So again, you can look at the complexity of the building and the roof, that it is a small building, but the roof structure is such that actual measurements would not give you that accuracy. And LIDAR survey was very, very useful. It was done by PEGS, and we used the point cloud, and finally we could generate all kinds of drawing sections, elevations, and also there were about 2,300 plus concrete panels which had to be examined for their condition on the facade. So this, of course, we could get walked through like I showed you earlier, but we also had to look at, you can see these concrete panels. We had to look at the condition, how many of these are, loose, how many of these are properly secured, and how many we need to treat with certain, treatments that were decided by the conservation architects. So this is, a more detailed survey that we carried out with the IIT Madras, which was linking the GPR and infrared techniques for condition of the panel. So we could actually find the condition of these panels and also verify the structural system. So here we could get, we could see that there were archival drawings which were showing certain reinforcements, but in actual infrared survey, we found that the layout was different. And this was then finally, here you can see the absence of columns and the ribs that, we could finally in the scans find what the archival drawing on the right side on top reveals and the actual layout that is existing. So we could finally, put this information, including the condition of the panels, on the LIDAR survey mapping that was done. And we could actually get each condition, and the target is, of course, developing it into like a BIM model where you can monitor and manage the condition of these panels in the long term. Another example that I'm showing you, which is in the historic city of Ajmer Pushkar, and we were working on that Hirday project here. And at the same time, we also, got into a research project with Cardiff University, UK, and SPA Bhopal, where we were looking into the historic layering of the city. And this is where the Cardiff University, conducted this survey where we could actually do the, these LIDAR surveys and laser scanning with in the city itself. That's Dr. Oriel Prizeman who conducted this particular exercise. And we could get details of structures like this Haveli inside, which were then finally, mapped and placed on a website and also these walkthroughs that the complete video tour that is now visible, along with details of the Havelis and drawings from the website. So this is was at that time a research exercise that was created, and the whole information from that project is now posted on the website, both on the Cardiff University website as well as the Rona Foundation website. So this was another exercise, and we carried out a similar one. I'm not going to talk too much about it. This is the Tamil Temple Towns Conservation and Contestation, another research project that was funded by the Art Humanities Research Council in UK. And again, where Cardiff University, SPA Bhopal and Rona Foundation were collaborating. And also now Professor Kailash Rao from SPA Vijayawada. So since he will be covering, the work done with drone and terrestrial surveys in this project. So I will leave this section for him. I'm now going to move more into the planning documents that we are able to create using such surveys. And one of these exercises, which was done was for, it's in Myanmar, a site, a city called Marau, which is in the Rakhine region. Of course, currently it is a very disturbed area. And even when we were working on it, of course, there were conflicts going on, particularly in the Rakhine region. But these drone surveys, it's actually a very unique city. Nobody really knows about it. There is not much historical record. And most of the archaeological remains are buried under vegetation or, underground. And that is why this kind of mapping using drone surveys was very useful, because actually understanding it physically or through any other instruments is not possible, alone, and it needs to be combined with these kind of surveys. This is just a bit of an introduction on where this city is. And I was involved through the Department of Archaeology, Myanmar, as an expert to prepare the nomination dossier for World Heritage for this particular site for them. So you can see it's in the Bay of Bengal, near the Bay of Bengal. It's like an inland coast in the Rakhine region. And it has, on the right side, you can see it has a history from the 1500 to 1800. So it's for about 400 years, it's sort of controlled the Indian Ocean trade in the Bay of Bengal. So very significant historically, but then most of the evidence of what remains is currently needs to be found out because it is buried. And there were maps like these which were created by archaeologists, Bob Hudson, who's helping them, is from Australia, and the Department of Archaeology. But of course, the challenge was that most of these remains, like if you count them, they go beyond the number like 2,000. And how many of these would be visible also was a challenge. So when we started preparing these maps, we realized that there were a lot of information missing. And of course, they were using a GIS mapping and locational points for each and every remain that they found, even if it was a broken Buddha image or any other archaeological or a broken stupa that remains, because all these had to be mapped. We, as per nomination, what was found that there are two attributes which were very important. One was, of course, the physical ones, the archaeological remains. And secondly, because it was a city, which had a defense system related to water and hydraulic engineering. So it was important to map those physiographical features also. And we had Professor Massimo Sarti from Italy, who was the hydrology expert in the team. So looking at these attributes, we found that we finally, when we get on site, and we had several missions when we were trying to identify these remains, then of course the concern was that a lot of this had this kind of thick vegetation, and to actually figure it out was a big challenge. And the Department of Archaeology had, like on every field visits, they also had the drones ready, and we could immediately look at situations like this. So here you can see, this is, you can just see a vegetation, but this is a square, and then there are 4 squares inside this. And we were able to find there is a description of this particular space, and the locals also mentioned how it was used by the ruler for creating spaces for his nobles to sit, and the major judicial decisions were taken out here. So we could actually get the structural, remains and the configuration that existed in terms of these 4 squares and another 4 squares. So this was not really a garden, which is what it looks like, but an open public square design. And it's only through drone surveys linked with field work, as well as later mapping, that we could put this all together. And this kind of data collection was used for several of the structures. Like I said, it is beyond 2000 plus structures, both water systems as well as the archaeological remains. And finally the GIS experts there could produce a mapping like that, which shows how many archaeological remains, the Buddha images, city gates, and these were all mapped. And then detailed condition assessment of each was carried out. So these are basically the data sheets about each. And in a similar manner, the water systems were also mapped because they were very important. So we had the mapping for that. The hydrology data entry in a similar manner, using the hierarchy of the water systems that were there. And finally, we could arrive at what we were planning to nominate, which showcase the outstanding value of this heritage as per World Heritage criteria, like in terms of the physical list of remains that existed on site, as well as the physiographical, including the water systems, dams, dikes, drainage, sluices, etc. And of course, the other challenges, like after you've done the mapping, then how do you get into the conservation and management of this? So again, I mean, this data is very useful because actually looking at each and every element now, the location, we can also again use drone for surveys of condition of these particular monuments. And these are then noted down, like which one is broken, what is the particular location and condition of each. And it is then, we put down the factors affecting each, whether it is weather, vandalism, pollution, other things, and what is the impact indicator for this. And finally, we have a management and monitoring system that is created to regularly monitor the condition of these remains and to ensure proper conservation in the long run. So this is one example where you see how useful it is in archaeological sites. And of course, there have been examples worldwide where we did not even know that sites existed, in places like Cambodia, where complete archaeological cities have been discovered using such surveys, aerial surveys. And lastly, I will show you Jaipur, which was, when it was declared as World Heritage City in 2019, that's the time the government of Rajasthan and especially the urban development minister, he was concerned that within the walled city, there are a lot of encroachments and developments. And it was very difficult to monitor them at the ground level. And he declared this aerial survey that would specifically look at encroachments and violations that are happening within the city, and how to control that, and how to retain its heritage and its glory as per commitment to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee. And so there were very detailed drone aerial surveys carried out for the entire city, looking at each and every street. And right now, I mean, that's what they are noting down, the kind of encroachments and violations that exist in these areas. And this was also a very useful tool during COVID and lockdown times, because Jaipur was the world city area, was one of the epicenter. And the way they could monitor it during COVID period was very useful in terms of, the condition as well as the facilities being provided. All those were monitored. And this is something that even UNESCO, World Heritage Center appreciated, and they published it in their newsletter on how Jaipur as a World Heritage City could manage this using drone surveys. I'll conclude with a short video, that shows how we are preparing the special area heritage management plan for Jaipur, using both drone and geospatial surveys.
Hello everyone, I'm Anurag Gupta, an urban planner and GIS expert from Drona, a heritage conservation consulting organization associated with Jaipur Municipal Corporation for the preparation of Special Area Heritage Plan for World Heritage Site Jaipur, along with the expertise from UNESCO New Delhi office. I'm working in close coordination with Heritage Cell Jaipur Nagar Nigam Heritage to collect the database for this plan. This video explains the application of digital technology for the preparation of Special Area Heritage Plan for Jaipur World Heritage City. It is a comprehensive long-term plan for the management and monitoring of World Heritage sites. We will show you the ongoing GIS mappings and drone surveys used by Jaipur Municipal Corporation and Town Planning Department for this purpose. Jaipur World Heritage Site is situated in the northern part of the Greater Jaipur, having an area of 6.7 square kilometer. Jaipur Wall City is the combination of 9 blocks arranged in a gridiron pattern. The GIS mapping process starts with a drone survey for the site having the resolution of 2 cm by 2 cm tiles. This drone imagery is further processed to digitize building footprints on the basis of identification of physical boundaries between the properties like boundary walls, left out open spaces, roof flooring, water tanks, parking spaces, grounds, and streets between them. It is estimated that there are around 35,000 buildings lie in the site area. Additionally, 360 video of all the streets have been prepared in high resolution to prepare a detailed inventory for each and every building. This inventory includes the details like building height, number of story, age of the building, facade finishes, heritage value, condition of the building, building use, and land use of the building, followed by thematic maps preparation based on the attached inventories. These inventories will be acting as a base to monitor the violation in the heritage building as per the bylaws and architectural control guidelines. It enables concerned authorities to impose penalties and enforce the violator to restore the building to its actual form. This inventory and GIS mapping is expected to be completed in few months. After completion, the inventory will be getting linked to a live tracking system to ensure the harmony among all the buildings as per the given heritage control guidelines. At last, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Jaipur Nagar Nigam Heritage team for their constant support.
This was my concluding presentation and acknowledgements to all the partners that we have for these projects. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a very informative talk, and thank you for sharing your intensive projects experiences with us. I request Dr. Kamal Jain to please proceed.
Dr. Shikha, while working with you, I know that how professional you are. So I see that you are continuing same way. And I think this is the requirement now. Smart city and old cities, government priority, it is in government priorities. And what you have given table, sometimes it is used in disaster mitigation also, in demolishing also. So I think very good, and it's a unique work. And from 2004, when you decided to use laser and modern, so already you are becoming modern that way. It's very nice to see. Thank you for participating in a short notice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next speaker for this session, we have Dr. Kailas Rao M. Dr. Kailas is professor in Department of Architecture in School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada. He completed his PhD from Manipal University on architectural pedagogy from the examples of traditional Indian temple, generation concepts to completion in 2008. He completed his MArch from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi in 1994. Dr. Kailas worked as lead conservation consultant for various architectural and archaeological monuments in Karnataka. He has extensive hands-on experience in digital documentation technologies in using LIDAR, white light scanning, aerial photogrammetry, digital robotic milling of sculptural data, and applied it at archaeological site at Sanathi, Karnataka for Archaeological Survey of India. He has 3D digital documentation done for around 220 temples, step dwells, and is working as lead documentation consultant for aerial photogrammetric documentation of 32 temples in Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh for Prasada of Cardiff University under the guidance of Professor Adam Hardy under the aegis of Leverhulme Grant. He is working as lead documentation consultant for REPL and ANB consultants working for Varanasi Ghats under the Smart City scheme. He has completed 500-meter stretch of Varanasi Ghat 3D digital mapping. Today, he is going to deliver his talk titled Application of UAVs in Heritage Conservation Applications. Up to you, sir.
Thank you, Swasti, for the wonderful introduction. Thank you, Dr. Kamal, Dr. Shikha, and the audience, the organizers who given me this opportunity. Hope I'm audible. Am I audible, Shikha?
Yeah, you're very audible.
Yeah, fine. So, without much of the getting into details, of course, I've been a trained conservation architect and found the most difficult aspect of conservation is to documenting as is various kind of situation in Indian context. Because of the complexity of the buildings, the context where they are situated, so you need to find different tools. So essentially, my training as a conservation architect, my domain knowledge in terms of conservation and restoration helped me a lot in terms of in terms of adopting new technologies, and it necessitated rather, I would say. So let me share my screen. Is it visible from the beginning?
You can bring in slide mode.
Yeah, I'm trying it. It's somehow it is
Bottom.
Okay.
Bottom cup. Right.
Yeah, it's, yeah. That somehow that particular command is not taking some time, perhaps. Maybe slightly larger file. It will take some time too. Can you see it now, sir?
Yeah, I think it's processing.
It is coming.
Okay. Now, hopefully, it's visible now. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay. So it's primarily that this is my topic that I'm talking about, and yeah. Okay, why is it? Yeah, the major challenges in conservation documentation is as is varies in conditions. Like there's a certain kind of a difference in terms of what we look at it as a buildings. Like for example, left side what I see is your the Western examples, which are drawing based in my opinion, and towards your right side are the buildings which are Indian context, which are may not be drawing based. In my own opinion, they are all code based, or rather they differ from one level to the other level. There is nothing like a plan or an elevation or a section as such one really looks for. They are configurational variations. It's very difficult at times to look at this kind of buildings which are towards your left side is all the Western examples where definitely buildings can be expressed to the drawings. Whereas what you see towards your right side is the typical Indian temple. If I try to look at it from the perspective of what do you call a wire mesh mode, basically all the hidden lines. If I really try to look at it from that perspective, is what it is. So it is quite a complex scenario, and unlike other disciplines of archaeological, epigraphical, iconographical, these things where the systems are already well established. Nothing much seems to have happened in terms of architectural conservation documentation in terms of a very definitive or a scientific way. So these kind of tools of expression, visualization may not be useful to understand completeness in terms of it. My own experience has started with the initial documentation using your plain table surveys. These are the kind of structures that we are looking at, megalithic sites at northern Karnataka. which are at least 5,000 to 6,000 years old. So how do you really document it from the perspective of as a plan or an elevation? These are all kind of. So we had a very great difficulty in documenting these things in terms of accurately with precision. Our things like the other survey tools were not really efficient, like your plain table surveys or total stations. They give you a certain kind of a plans, but how do you really document the elevations of it with respect to as is varies condition? So you try to tie horizontal lines using water tubes, fix up your verticals through lumbars, and try to check how much has been deflected and record each of the stone in such kind of structures. So all these kind of structures that we were documenting at times are, 1,000 years, 2,000 years old buildings, ranging from that kind of a thing. And so the documentation was quite tricky. So you have a range of things trying to triangulate it, information from different points that are marked. So it used to take 6 months to 8 months to just to document the plan of this kind of building, the Talakadu Kirthan temple building. Of course, digitizing was more or less like an architecturally trying to put them into AutoCAD drawings, and perhaps drawing the elevations accurately as is, because is very impossible task, because you may have to take up millions of points, dimensions, and put it as it is. So it was very tricky job, especially when it comes to the complex Indian temple architecture. Now, it's also very important to document everything very precisely, because in all the columns, maybe it may take some 1,000 years to tilt 15 degrees, but it may be the last 1 degree which might going to decide whether it is going to stand or not. So that's the reason that was more important. So these were the kind of conditions that we were working, where the precision of the buildings seems to be accurate. Like you can see to the left side of it, a small plinth of a Northern Karnataka Dravida temple, where small gaps which are intentionally done. And what you see towards the right side is perhaps the assembly of this kind of a complex geometrical building. So how do you really document it? It's not just like a plans, elevations kind of a documentation. So when that was the time I came across various this thing. This is some sort of a indicator if the complexity is from 1 to 10,000, or object size is 0.1 meters to, let's say, some kilometers. What kind of a techniques work? So we tried variety of techniques to come at different strategies. And as I told you, the nature of the buildings that we were looking at is extremely composite in nature, and the domain knowledge about these kind of architecture is much more important. Majority of this kind of an information documentation that is available is highly visual, observational, and perhaps it's more of a sort of a descriptive in nature. But coming to tangible part of documenting it, extraordinarily difficult, because you do not know where the building geometry ends and the sculpture begin. And especially there, every small inch and niche of it is filled up with so much of detail. One may say that in principle, documentation as a diagrammatically recording is possible, not here, especially like these kind of structures which are stellar in geometry, or this kind of subterranean wells which are with all its problems, the current conditions and the bulgings, but astonishingly beautiful and complex structures, and all these kind of columns which are so intricately detailed. Typical documentation techniques of each size measuring and try to put them together, and also of course trying to understand these reflections are a problematic one. But however, we were trying to do it more of an orthorectification, maybe rather than a Photoshop type of a work, but trying to orthorectify kind of images kind of thing. And that's the earliest level of a photogrammetry that we could get back was sometimes in 2008 and 9. That's the time where I was working with the archaeological side. So of course, these were the kind of field trials we were doing with the photogrammetry, trying to calibrate our cameras with the kind of different size of targets. And then this was the kind of a site which was spread out. So this was the perhaps the most basic level of I mean, I would not say aerial photogrammetry, but we really had to climb up a huge ladders, fabricate it, and try to take pictures and try to process it with a very rudimentary photogrammetric softwares, then LiDAR, and started looking at the kind of point clouds that we get it. Then simple process of converting them into meshes and applying textural information onto it. So we did kind of got into this thing, and also got into a lot of this kind of LiDAR technologies using for this kind of a complex site. The site was 3rd century BC Buddhist stupa, which belongs to, which has a portrait of Ashoka. So this was the kind of a LiDAR that we were using in 2009 and 10, and you can imagine the most of the information which are there in the shadow ranges are not possible to extract it. Even though you have a range of, those days we were getting a 60 to 70 meters range. This thing today it's available at 450 meters also in a commercial LiDAR. But in spite of it, the complexities are quite difficult. There are areas where you cannot be able to reach. The accuracies were fairly good. Using white light scanning, we could even take it to a level of a few, perhaps maybe 2 microns per applications. This is where we got a little bit more. I would say that drones were not really useful in, not available in those days. We had certain kind of collaborations with our aeronautical departments and all, but trying to take a payload of a small camera and trying to keep it stable. I'm talking about 2009 and 10. So we were using things like infrared, perhaps simple Xbox kind of things, and started working with this kind of this kind of data, which were try to combine them and try to make a overall stuff. Okay, so what was not possible in a smaller, in one go, we were trying to get it with the things like it's not moving. It's actually sort of video clip. It's somehow stuck. Okay.
You can use the space bar to run the video.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying, but it is perhaps
Space bar.
Yeah, it's trying to give this message that updating your media. The more technology we use, we have more problems. Okay, fine. I will go with the. They're all videos actually. Okay. Fine. I will leave it that. Perhaps this is the kind of why it's not taking up. Still updating media. That's the reason. So basically, this kind of a detailed 3D models were acquired, and the applications were like, of course, these were the relatively what you call. It's actually video showing the 3D model, which was acquired using both using LiDAR and combining with the photogrammetry. Fairly accurate models for that. Unfortunately, my video is not playing. I do not know why. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I will proceed with. Okay, I'll leave it there. This was the entire 3D model was acquired using the what we call it as UGART technologies. It's around 2011, 30 to 13 we did that. But the most problematic situations for these kind of sites, which is like a very unknown kind of a sites called as a Devani Gutta or a space which it's not moving, sir.
You can use normal mode.
Okay, fine. So yeah. Anyway, this was the kind of a situation. This was the perhaps first ever identified site of most probably belonging to 6th century, hidden deep inside a forest, a place called Devangutta, which was identified by some of the enthusiastic art historians, and then we managed to get to this kind of place. Now, how do we really get into this kind of a document such kind of a complex scenarios, which is, everything was so dicey, it was about to crumble. Perhaps this may be one of the unique site which recently we could manage to document it before any intervention has happened. So you do have a various layers of Shaiva, Vaishnava, Buddhist layers in it, and by and large, it's a kind of complex temple which has in a highly deteriorated weather kind of a condition. Now, documenting as is varies was the biggest task of this particular kind of a structure, which you before you even touch this thing. So that's, I think, most probably first ever kind of a this thing. First, we got it clean with this. One of my friend Arvind, who's been passionate about working on this kind of areas, and of course, we have a kind of place which we have to walk around 8 to 9 kilometers in the forest, and this unprotected, abandoned 6th century, probably 6th century army older kind of a temple. How do you really do it? I think you just carry your little backpack with the drone and perhaps maybe. So this is the kind of strategies that we used for it. Normally, most of this aerial photogrammetry people use zenith charts, use some kind of a flight paths which are predetermined, and you do this kind of a what do you call it? Sort of a with the overlap of 70, 80, 90% of it. It certainly doesn't work in the cases like this. You really have to use this as a sort of a relic this thing. So of course, you really started working with this kind of a thing with experience from the technology. It's also becoming an art of taking, using scanning, using your lidar. So because you are more interested to detailedly understand each course, its reflections, its variations, whatever the permissible level of your resolution that you can get it, you can try it out. Of course, the race between software and hardware never changes. So advantage with this one is that we now have a perfect orthographic projections on all sides with all precision level of data. Of course, as I told you, precision is a relative term. How much you want is how much you can really stress your systems, or how many images that you take, how much of a processing time that you involve with it. But however, now we have example where such kind of buildings which are otherwise. Now we also could combine with the ground level data using your terrestrial lidar and photogrammetry to greater extent. So well, and then of course the use of digital elevation models, we had to really tweak it to match what we did. Normally it is always taken from top, but we were also trying to see each side of it to understand the this kind of how much of a problem the situation is going to. You can really understand the kind of variations that each of the courses going through, the gaps that are running. Some way to technically we started looking at them to quantify those kind of data using. Well, of course, all it has to be combined with our own understandings of our domain expertise of conservation, material understanding, geometry, whatnot. And then, we try to combine these data which were, using your aerial data with the terrestrial data. And I would say that still there is no definite the way of doing it. As and when we are proceeding, we are identifying new challenges, new problems, new techniques to resolve these kind of things. And of course, the data which we were, at times we have to be skeptical, how much is real, how much is surreal. Maybe sometimes 3D printing also has been helpful. Now, Professor Adam Hardy has really been climbing up many temples from past 25, 30 years to identify small little columns. Somebody like me, he can, use drone to just, perhaps maybe I'm not as agile as Professor Adam Hardy, who can really do this kind of experiment, but maybe with the newer tools and technologies, I was helpful to him in terms of getting a precise roof plan of these kind of temples, which was otherwise very, very difficult to get it. Now, if somebody has to really draw the plan, roof plan of an Indian temple, I would say drawing is possible, but actually, documenting is next to impossible with the manual methods. Now, what you see towards the top of it, the temple example called Taranga, where we could really manage to, do a very precise, what do you call it, roof plan. And Professor Adam had is drawing what you see below is line drawing, which he has done before. Now he knows how these roof plans work and how various grids are useful, and how the craftsman, the genius of Sthapatis can change these kind of grids and achieve some sort of extraordinary configurations. And there are proofs. I mean, thanks to the using of drone. Now, I was using a typically commercial Chinese-made drones, but then of course you tweak it thanks to some of the softwares available, and maybe you can do such kind of things. Unfortunately, none of my videos are working. Forgive me for that. All these things were. Why is it showing updating your media for such a long time? Okay, fine. Technology is a double-edged sword. It can really make or break kind of a thing. Now, this was the kind of a another temple. Again, you have to forgive me for the kind of, it's not the kind of a presentation normally I encounter this controls. Anyway, this is the another multi-Shakhari temple, which we used this kind of drone-based technologies. And another temple. These are all videos which can show you every layer of information that we try to embed it, but not working today. Fine. So, of course, these are all based on these applications are meant for architectural understanding. Then you have to have, as I told, domain knowledge, whether there is a possibility of them working with certain kind of a computational techniques. It was possible to use certain kind of a computational technique to see how much of them were actually originally intended, how much of damage has happened. So these things were possible, whether when we record a column or a series of columns and try to compute them with this machine and see how much of this computational understanding of the 9th, 10th, 11th century artisans were using. So from the smaller building, elements like columns, you have a scan data and you have mathematically produced data, try to relocate, readjust them and see how much is real, how much is, possible, how much is lost. Some experimentations were done with the different old line drawings which were available at different sites. So we could gather that information and recreate using a different kind of models like that, and then superimpose them. Like what you see in blue is what we could gather from the scan data, and what you see in the black and white is something what you recreated using Euro computing sweep geometry techniques, and to check whether there was any, how much of an accuracy level that we can achieve. Surprisingly, up to a 4 mm level of detail, what we see is possible. That means there is a way that we know a computing techniques applied for the different types of shikaras, the whole structural numbers, like these are the kind of scan data which were used various strategies. I would say it is that most of this was slightly pre-drone eras, but now with the drones we could use even more accurately. And these are the computational models that we could really work it out and superimpose like this. Comparatively see that the accuracy. The idea of this one was that we have huge number of abandoned temples with the scattered stones here and there. And the idea, if we can really match these two things with our computational understanding based upon the domain knowledge of temple architecture of a region, of a particular genre, whether we can really it can help in terms of retrofitting. Many of them are lying everywhere, like this kind of a complex geometries of star-shaped plants in a place called the we scanned it using various techniques and started putting them together using different strategies like this. And now these are the computing understanding that we can work it out from the various our own observations and detailed analysis of these models. And what we could see that there is a possibility these models could be reduced and certain genres we could decipher and convert them into a basic level of comments. Now, this is the level of those computed models, and we could even use them to see how much of in reality what it is and how it could have been, and what is stones missing, and whether we could reassign them the correct location. Of course, it also requires a lot of collaborating with the other evidences that we have. Of course, these are the other 3D mapping. Of course, what I really am not really distinguishing using LiDAR or using photogrammetry, aerial, these things. I mean, once the job is done, it's all coming back to a kind of a level of how dense a point cloud data that you can make, how you can really capture reality. That's the thing. So if it is possible with the ground, yes, do it. If it is, you have to use this drone, you use it, then you have you can use the various milling techniques which are once the point clouds. Unfortunately, yes, these videos are not running. A large stretch of entire around 5 kilometers of Varanasi has been captured with a fairly good amount of precision that we could deal with it and then develop this kind of entire model. I'm sorry for not showing you the detail because it's a video clip. Okay, I mean, these are the kind of a 3D things. Now, there were attempts done by other agencies earlier who were purely from the background of drone mapping surveys, who take some thousands of pictures and this thing. But then the results were not really sufficiently correct. You can see from top, yeah, the maps could be really generated, but when it comes to the final detailing, what we look for a conservation architect were not there. So, of course, this was done in it was an experimental work done for a smart city. Often doing around a 500-meter stretch, we got an approval to do another 5-kilometer stretch of it. But the processing was a huge learning for us, because nothing can give you more challenging environment than Varanasi itself, because Varanasi is such a complex scenario. If somebody can really document it as is varies, it's almost impossible. I mean, even with the technologies, I would say it's impossible. But however, we could really go to the little bit of details where we could really see every detail fairly well, understand why it is bulging, where the waters are leaking, where the roofs are collapsed, where your guards are cracking, where it is sinking. All those things wouldn't have been possible using drone. And of course, even with the drones, it was quite a task, because in one day you cannot cover the entire this thing, and the light condition keeps changing. So we started using more than 3 drones at a time, and also the suppose you start from this point and come up to this point, maybe up to a reasonable level of light conditions, which will work. But the next day you can't start here because you can't stitch the whole thing. So you really have to. We were wondering, how do you stitch these data together? So next day, what we did is that, suppose if I ended at that particular place around 11 o'clock in the morning, started work at 7 o'clock. If I reached here at 11 o'clock, next day I start here at 7 o'clock and reached at there at 11 o'clock, so that I can mirror the time, and so that the matching of the imagery is reasonably good. Well, ground control points in a place where lots of people are moving, impossible to deal with it. So some other jugaad techniques have to be worked out. Perhaps some of the chatris were used as a GCPs or some sort of a your own markers that you position there and start working as well, flagging, putting a flag marks to do that. Well, again, it's the whole logic of this particular, different areas with the point clouds are captured. This is also actually video. Yeah, now it started working. Okay, fine. Now, okay, this is one of the stretch effect. Fine, we could really go into the small little details of it, and of course, this is a perfect auto photograph. Things small things like your railings and other things were a little tricky, but by and large, whatever that we could get, this is the best possible kind of information that we really have. Looking at all the small little details. I'm sure now with this one, if we start using with the various other data, it could be a fantastic way that we can really go with a lot more details. That's the kind of thing. these are the different guards that we have managed it, and maybe the process was quite interesting. As I told you, it's not just looking at the charges, that you have captured the entire model so that you can cut it at different levels and try to look at different aspects of it much more in detail. So that was it. I think there's also video. My videos have gone for a task today. Okay, fine. That's kind of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kailash, for sharing with us your experience and the extensive work that you've done. I request Dr. Kamal Jain to please continue.
Dr. Kailash, when I started about 30 years back on closed-ring photogrammetry, I thought I am the first one, but now I see you catch up to the latest one, and many applications are almost, at par with the standards, the mapping standards. Only few things on which we are working, which obviously is challenge for you also. One is BIM to 3D GIS. Second is point cloud to surface, which I saw in your case is very much required to save the space. And I think using software like Photo Modeler, other thing, that drawing which is prepared can be drawn as a line, three-dimensional line drawing. And I think practically, because now you have gained a lot of experience, so taking care of the sunlight, everything I see, most of the thing problem you have solved by your experience. It's very good to see. So anyway, so I see now somewhere we'll interact in future. We'll see where we can work together.
Thank you very much, sir. It was so kind of you. I mean, most of these things, as I told you, my earlier documentation with the manual methods was so complicated and time-consuming. And at the very late stage, I had to really get into use of technology. And now it's paying fairly good, rich dividends. My field work time has fairly reduced, and my analysis time has increased exponentially. Otherwise, the good data is what will lead you correct information. Bad data is, will lead to a bad decision. So that's the foundation idea with which we started.
Right, very good. Okay, Shikha.
Thank you, Dr. Shikha and Dr. Kailash. And I also thank our online viewers. I'm sure that our viewers have got a good takeaways from both the presentations today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.